Hi, I'm Christie Valentine Powell, and I want to introduce my new book that I just published and do a reading of some of the first few scenes. So this is my new book. It's called DreamRovers. It's going to be a trilogy with all three books coming out this calendar year. So this one's called The Price of Deliverance, and two more on their way. This is a fantasy. It takes place in the fantasy world that all my books are in. So this one is about a family that has the unusual ability of being able to travel through dreams, and this sometimes gets them in trouble with their neighbors, so they're trying to find a safe place where they can be safe and raise their family without persecution. And so this one has 3 points of view, so I'm going to be reading a scene from each point of view to start out with. So here we go. Indra knew better than to enter a stranger's dream, but this was a perfect opportunity. A flash of sickly yellow invaded the indigo mist of the dreamscape. Yellow dreams meant illness. Illness meant that she might be able to help, and helping meant she might prove that DreamRovers were ordinary people, not monsters. Then she wouldn't have to fear people anymore. Indra peered into the dream through the mist that blurred it like a transparent curtain. A stout man danced across red woolen broadcloth, while birds shaped like buttons swooped down at him. He batted the button birds away with practiced ease, and they flew across the room. A fine silk coat fell over, joining the cloth underfoot. If she woke him, he might be able to get help. Indra leaned into the dream and appeared sitting cross-legged on the wine-red cloth. The dreamer paused, and so did the birds, hanging strangely in mid-air. "You probably ought to wake up," she said. He showed no alarm at her appearance. In reality, he would react, maybe judging from her colorless hair what she was. Once he knew she was a dream rover, he'd throw rocks. "I should," he said, "but I can't seem to manage it." He knew he was dreaming, and yet he hadn't awoken. The illness must be serious. Waking him wasn't likely to help them, but if she calmed him, he might enter deep sleep and heal faster. "Wait!" he cried. "I know what you are!" A weapon appeared in the dreamer's hands. A sword? No, a spear. It couldn't hurt her, but if he woke up suddenly, she'd be forced into reality with him. "You're a dream rover! Why are you here? Stealing my secrets? Spying on my mind?" The last thing dream rovers needed was more bad publicity. "I'm trying to help," Indra said. The cloth below their feet moved, higher and brighter, until it was not wine-red cloth at all, but consuming flames. Indra felt nothing. The man cried out, but his yelp was lost behind the crackling of the fire. "Why aren't you burned up?" Indra tried to make her voice calming. "The flames can't hurt anyone. They're not real." He writhed. He could feel the heat, Indra realized. Probably feverish in reality. The dreamer began to race around the walls of the shop, which spun in a dizzying blur. "Wait! Calm down!" Indra cried. "You won't get better that way! Your button birds are bringing water!" He seemed to like the idea. The buttons began to move again, tipping this way and that, but the water that rained from the sky had no effect on the fire. No sizzle of steam, no smoke, no hint of coldness on her skin. Dreamers never did seem to think of details like that. "The fire can't hurt you," Indra said. "It feels good, in fact. Can't you see the snowstorm outside the window?" A hole opened in the walls to reveal a blustering white and blue world. "Good thing you're not out there, huh?" Indra said. "The fire's all right. It's stuck in a..." She almost said fireplace, but that was too logical. "It's stuck in a chamber pot." The fire around them leapt into an oversized orange pot, leaving the dreamer again standing on cloth, this time ivory white. "Dangerous business, tailoring," the man said. "Cloth is very flammable, you know." "But frog skin isn't." The cloth under their feet turned slimy green. The dreamer faced her. Indra hoped his expression was more curious than hostile, but in the vague shapes of the dream she couldn't tell. "What do you want from me?" he demanded. "I'm nobody important. I don't have any secrets you can exploit. You can't take my shop. You can't haunt my dreams." "I wouldn't do that." "Oh." He leaned back, and his voice was suddenly vacant. "All right, then." Something fell from the ceiling. Snow? No, ocean water that fell around them, filling the room. The tailor climbed onto a table, which began to rock and rock above the waves. His eyes closed. The world was not so yellow. Indra beamed. Maybe she'd helped after all. "What are you doing here?" Indra whirled around. A figure had appeared from nowhere, more solid and colorful than anything in the dream. She could see every detail, from fur cap to well-worn boots. His clothes were rough but well kept, and he carried a small bag. "You're a rover," she said. He held a finger to his lips, but the dreamer was idly petting one of his button birds and didn't seem to notice. The stranger stepped forward, and the faint rustling of his clothes told Indra that he was physically present. "You can tread too," she said. "Obviously, but you don't have his permission to be here." He pointed to the dreamer, who peeked at them through unfocused eyes. "Do you have permission?" "I came to cure his fever. I cleaned his wounds and gave him medicines." He lifted a small black bag in one hand. Indra raised an eyebrow. Taking items through the dreamscape, even small ones, took serious skill. "You, on the other hand, this random eavesdropping is what gives rovers a bad name." He didn't understand. The dreamscape was her home, no matter what dreamer happened to be connected to it. "I was calming him down," Indra said. "I wanted to teach him we're not so scary." She shouldn't have said we. The stranger was scary. His face was pale and drawn, with purple shadows under his bluish eyes. "Isn't that what you're doing?" she asked. "Healing people so they don't fear us?" He couldn't be earning much money, or he'd be better dressed. "I've done all I can at home. At least here I can make a difference." Then he started, as though he hadn't realized he'd spoken aloud. "You'd better leave! You weren't invited here!" Indra shrank back. She couldn't stay out of the dreamscape, but she didn't dare contradict him. How had reality followed her into the dreamscape? Behind the stranger, the dreamer's eyes closed. The room blurred. Soon he would be in deep sleep, and his dreams would fade away. Indra leaned through a wall into the indigo mist of the dreamscape. It swirled over her arms, made patterns against her skin. She didn't see the dreamer anymore, or the stranger anymore. The current had swept him some other way. It didn't matter. She let the current tug her away, watching flashes of dreams glide past. So that was Indra's point of view. That's the first character. Now here's for the second one. Walker's boots crunched through layers of snow. Cold bit his nose and the few inches of his face not protected by his beard. Meat that had been a rabbit hung from one hand, cleaned and ready. Out of habit, his unhurried pace took him from cover to cover, behind a boulder, a stand of small pines, a ridge of earth. His latest camp appeared, a simple shelter of heaped snow. A circle of blackened earth showed where he'd banked the coals of yesterday's fire. The dry wood to start it again lay hidden under a camouflaged roof between two scrub oak trees. He scanned the camp twice until he was certain that no one else had been here, and then eased into the open. A rooster emerged from the dark entrance of the snow cave. His feathers bounced comically as he ran. Walker couldn't suppress a smile. Robbie probably only cared about the handful of grain in Walker's pocket, but the attention was still flattering. The old scars that marked him as a fighting bird, before Walker had rescued him, were now covered by thick golden feathers, and his beady eyes were bright. Walker was halfway across the clearing when a brown flash shot from the sky. A hawk? Or an eagle? It didn't matter. The predator collided with Robbie in an explosion of feathers. "Get out of here!" A shout should have startled the predator, but Walker's voice was too rough, too low. He hadn't used it much lately. The hawk looked up at him, frozen for the moment, wings held up to shield its prey, fierce eyes fixed on him. Walker ran at it, waving his arms. The hawk waited until Walker was a few feet away. Then it launched into the sky and was gone. Robbie was still breathing, but there were deep slashes through his neck and back, on top of his old scars. Walker's hands trembled as he picked him up. He often hunted quail and grouse and other rooster-like birds. Mourning this one was ridiculous, but he couldn't stop his shaking hands. Robbie didn't struggle. Maybe it was shock, but Walker liked to think it was trust. "Poor thing," said a girl's voice. Walker jumped, more startled than when the hawk had dived. A girl of perhaps 13 was walking to him across the snow. Walker had seen no one but soldiers in 2 years. No women, and certainly no children. The girl took off a threadbare coat several sizes too large, revealing a simple homespun dress. Her tangled brown hair framed a gaunt face. She leaned forward and bound her coat around Robbie's torn back. It wouldn't help. Walker didn't have the heart to tell her. Robbie might cling to life another day or two, but the shock or infection would get him if the wound didn't, and then he'd be gone. Walker's only companion, his only link to his old life, the only part of it he wanted to remember. "My brother's a doctor," the girl said. "Maybe he can help your chicken." Your brother? Walker peered around the snowy clearing. No one was there. Our camp's this way. She took his hand. Warmth spread through his fingers, though he wore gloves and she did not. She led him over a small rise. A man was leaning against a tree nearby. Walker should have heard someone so close. The hawk must have driven it from his mind. The man was older than his sister, closer to Walker's 20. His face was nearly hidden by a fur cap, but what Walker could see was drawn, unnaturally pale, with deep shadows under his eyes. I'm Norma, the girl said, and this is my brother, Leo. Leo's eyes darted from his sister to Walker, who withdrew his hand from hers. He knew how he appeared, unshaven, dirty, dressed in badly sewn furs, and he must smell revolting. Not someone you would want around your kid sister. But Leo didn't ask any questions. He bent over Robbie and unwrapped him with steady hands. Walker tried not to squirm as the stranger's face came within feet of his own. Leo said nothing about the bloodied coat. Everyone Walker had known would have berated Norma over this use of it, and none of them needed warm clothes half so much as she did. We can try bandages, Leo said, but his voice lacked hope. And I can make a poultice at camp. I don't think, Walker croaked. Leo must not have heard him. He retreated further into the hills. His trudging feet left wide gashes in the snow. He led them uphill to a thin copse of pine trees. Walker berated himself for imagining eyes watching him from the shadows. Then one pair of eyes moved into the open, revealing a red-headed toddler wrapped in a worn blanket. More faces appeared. Walker had lived in the mountains too long to believe in ghosts or demons. These had to be real people, yet they seemed unearthly. Shell-shocked eyes followed his every move. No one spoke. Even facing Robbie's loss, Walker knew that the worst tragedy was here. A man emerged from a simple hut of woven branches. His shoulder-length auburn hair was unkempt, and stubble marked his cheeks. He had the same blue-hazel eyes as Leo and Norma, and Walker guessed he was their father. His glazed eyes slid past Walker without seeing him. He beckoned to Leo, who shrank back. I've done all I can, Leo murmured. I know. The father's voice was as hoarse as Walker's. Go anyway. She's asking for you. Leo ducked inside the hut, and his father took his place. He looked down at Norma, bare-armed and shivering, then at Walker with the bloody bird in his arms. Can we help you? No, Walker said. I can help you. He meant to ask a question, but the words came out forcefully. Their need was evident in every face. You don't want to get tangled up with us, the father said. Walker shook his head. My reputation has nothing to lose. But we're DreamRovers. The man must be distracted to admit that to a stranger. No wonder the family had so little. They must have fled when their abilities were discovered. Otherwise they would have been beaten or executed, and it was Walker's fault. So am I, Walker said. One of the onlookers gasped. Huge eyes opened even wider. The father stared at Walker as though he'd grown wings. Then at last recognition flashed through his eyes. You're like us. In a way. Walker extended his hand. I'm Walker Filmasa. The man's expression didn't change. He hadn't heard of one-shot Walker then. Good. Walker could help for a little while before they drove him away. I'm Bridgely. The stranger's grip was unexpectedly firm. A terrible hacking cough made both look up. This must be the she that had asked for Leo. What do you need? Walker asked. Food? I can hunt? Bridgely looked away. I can hunt. Should have gone before, but Ara... He looked back at the shelter. My wife has pneumonia. I have to stay with her. I don't think she's going to make it. Norma whimpered. A large black dog placed its paw on her worn shoe. The dog seemed to be taking exile better than the rest of them. Its ribs were hidden under glossy fur. A late snow had carpeted the mountains 2 weeks ago, and cold temperatures kept it from melting. Norma wasn't the only one with inadequate clothing. A boy of perhaps 10 wore only a nightshirt. No wonder they were getting pneumonia. I can help you, Walker said again. He could do something, at least a little, to make up for the prejudice he'd unleashed. He set Robbie into Bridgely's arms. Salvage what meat you can. I'm going out for more. Then he walked, arms empty, into the hills. If nothing else, he could retrieve the rabbit. So that's the first scene of Walker's point of view. I'm going to be skipping now to the third point of view, and I'll let her introduce herself. March 2nd, year of freedom 490. My name is Norma Filara, and I am 15 years old. My new friend Walker gave me this paper, so now I can keep a journal again. My last one got left behind when we moved. Actually, all our stuff got left behind. Even my favorite milk cow. Papa said we might get a new cow in our new home whenever we find it, but he didn't say it could be mine. My brothers teased me because I was sad about the cow when we've gone through so many sad things. I guess I have to explain about the sad things, at least a little. We used to live in a town called Shelby. People didn't know what we could do. At first, because dream roving wasn't that much different than any other special ability, crowd speaking or empathy, or even the odd ones like water or fire shaping. Then, after it became illegal a couple years ago, we were too afraid to tell anyone. But eventually, people found out. We had to leave our house fast before they caught us, but it was freezing cold and we left all our stuff behind, even our blankets and warm clothes. Mom and little Orion got sick. We lost Orion first, then Mom. I don't want to talk about sad stuff anymore. Let's move forward. We're making plans to enter a new city, a bigger one, south from Shelby. We've moved before, which means we've rebuilt before. We can do it again. So there you have it. There are the three scenes from the 3 point of view characters from DreamRovers. You can find it on Amazon. I'm sure you'll probably see the links. I'll have them posted all over. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy.